Hello, everyone. Good to see you all.
Hello.
In 2021, Booking.com introduced its Travel Sustainable Program, a framework designed to highlight and support its accommodation partners on their sustainability journeys. Booking.com continues to use the GSTC criteria to inform program developments as Booking.com encourages compliance by all hotels to 100% compliance with the GSTC criteria. During our session today, we will hear directly from the people at Booking.com about the program, Travel Sustainable, and hear some insights and allow you to ask questions that might have not been addressed during this session. Let me introduce our speakers from Booking.com. Kees-Jan Boenen, who is the head of the Travel Sustainable Program, and Thomas Laughlin, the Sustainability Management Supply. So let's start. At GSTC, we've been involved in this, in discussions with Booking.com for quite some years. But let's share a little bit with the audience. What was the motivation and kind of the background of the program? Why did you decide to do that? Because we don't necessarily see that all of the OTAs out there create such a robust program. So perhaps you can share a few insights on that.
Yeah, happy to do that, Roy. And pleasure to be here. And congratulations to you and the team for organizing such a successful event once again, shortly after, a couple of months after we've met each other in Seville. Why did Booking.com decided to develop the Travel Sustainable program? Well, our goal is and always has been, how can we make it easier for travelers to travel in a more sustainable way? In order to offer choices, we also have to offer travelers something to choose from. And when the Travel Sustainable program of a team starting to develop the program, they looked at, okay, what is the sustainable supply out there? And at the time, the only way for an accommodation to be recognized for their sustainability efforts were certification programs. Then they looked, okay, how many accommodations that are on the Booking.com website are actually part of those programs? And it turned out that there was a very small amount, a really small amount of sustainable supply out there. So in order to bridge that gap, Booking decided to develop a recognition that's universal, credible, and easy to understand to provide sustainable accommodation information. In order to anticipate some questions maybe later on, let me be very clear, we're not a certification program, nor do we aspire to be one, but we really need to acknowledge where the industry is. And there's a huge gap between accommodations that are starting their travel sustainable journey and the ones that are fully certified. And I think the best way to demonstrate this is that, as you said, 18 months ago we started with the program. Now we have 1.36 million accommodations sharing data, sustainability data with us. 550,000 have been recognized for their sustainability efforts, which means they received level 1, 2, or 3, and only around 6,000 properties are part of an official independent program. So that means that even for our program, there are 800,000 properties, more or less, that are not recognized. And even if you compare that, who is close to becoming certified, that's still a significant gap that we really try to aim with this program to overcome and really make properties start their sustainability or accelerate the sustainability journey. And also, certification programs are the gold standard, and we fully recognize that. Only the way how to get there is something we really need to work on as an industry, and I'm very happy that GSTC is offering us this opportunity to work together on this. I think if you look at the slide behind me, this really summarizes what I was trying to say just now. We're really focusing on increasing the sustainable supply because, again, we need to offer consumers a choice to travel in a more sustainable way. I think if we reach a significant level of sustainable supply, consumers start to recognize this. And also we, as a company, but also as an industry, we can start starting to raise awareness that there are more sustainable travel options out there. If consumers then are starting to participate and travel in a more sustainable way, we hope to achieve changing behavior. And I think that's a crucial point, because then accommodation will see and start to see the ROI on their efforts to become more sustainable. And I think we sincerely believe that that is really going to accelerate this flywheel and helping accommodation to become more sustainable. So, how does our program works? As you can see, our travel sustainable program consists of two elements. One is the internal framework. We work very closely with recognized international bodies like the GSTC and Travelist, for example, to, okay, how can we identify the most impactful actions that a property can take to start a journey? Also, what is in their control to start this journey? Right? How can what are actionable things they can embark on? So we identified 5 categories: renewable energy, waste management, water management, protecting nature, and how our accommodations engaging with local communities. Also, as just mentioned, and so we will send a property a questionnaire with questions that cover all those 5 categories. The accommodation will fill out those questionnaire, we receive the data, and we will come up with a score, and this is the levels that you probably have seen on our website. Again, we also recognize that independent certifications are the gold standard, so we will display them as a level on its own, and this is the highest level that we recognize in our program, and you see here GSTC as a very prominent member, so we recognize all the GSTC certified bodies. What you see here as well is that the chain programs, they are not part of our travel sustainable program. There's a reason for that, because for us, we really, at this moment, we don't have full transparency on where where the participants, the chain members are in their journey. So if they're part of a chain program, one hotel, part of the chain, might be just starting, and the other one might be very far advanced. So that's why we will make that, they're still very much welcome to join the program, but we will make that assessment on an individual basis. We will go into a lot of details in the next 45 minutes or hour, but let us be very transparent as well. We're now 18 months into the program. For us, it's a journey as well. We're learning every day. That's why sessions like this are very valuable to understand, okay, how can we help you? What are the barriers that certification programs are seeing, and how can we help you to overcome those barriers, and where can we work together and collaborate on this? So I stop here. Looking forward to your questions later.
So you were actually mentioning about the 18 months. I think that is actually the formal announcement, right, at the end of 2021. Yeah. But actually, there's been, when we've been in discussions, there were actually previous and prior versions, yeah, that were already out there for certain customers that could see. I remember one time I went to book something on booking.com, and all of a sudden I saw that, and then the next time I didn't see it. So perhaps maybe you can share a little bit on how it came, how the process went from the UX UI perspective. How come that you announced it in 2021, but you've been working on it a few years before?
Yeah, thank you.
Skip.
Did you want to go through some of those?
No, I skipped.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a thing that comes up quite often, is about people seeing different things at different times across different platforms. But one thing we like to start with is the intent part of it. So we've published our research just recently. It's the 8th year of this research, and this is kind of our guiding point, our jumping off point. And so we know that customers want to travel more sustainably. They tell us 76% want to travel more sustainably in the next year. We also know that 80% of travelers are saying that sustainability in tourism is important to them, and 75% are saying that they want to respect the local culture. These numbers have not really changed over time. You see actually in some instances they get higher. So we see clear intent from the customer, but with intent comes barriers, of course. And so in the same research piece that we published this year, but again, we've been asking this question for the last 8 years, and the same barriers continue to be at the top. So they don't know where to find sustainable options. Often they find that they're too expensive, and actually this one in particular increased 11% this year. We think it's more to do with the rising cost of living and inflation, but now customers feel that they're stuck in this notion that they have to choose between sustainability and spending. So that's a serious issue. And then the third top barrier is around not having enough options. So I think the first one, not knowing where to find it, and not having enough options are connected, because if you knew where to find them, you would see that indeed there are some options at least. Going on from that, you see in the middle actually there's some travelers are also looking at more budget-friendly sustainable options. And we should mention for this research piece, it was done across 33,000 travelers that aren't specifically Booking.com guests, but actually just travelers in general, and across 35 countries. So back to your point about, well, you see it once and then you didn't see it again, and then it was different, and then someone else tried to show it to you and it wasn't there. We always answer by saying this is A/B testing, and I think that this is a nice opportunity to actually pull out and explain what that means, because it's not as simple as it might sound. It's not about turning something on the front end and only showing it to 50% of the people and then not showing it to the other 50. But it starts much earlier in the process. So I started working on this product back in 2019, I think, a long time ago. And we started off looking at, okay, what platforms do we work on? So our customers interact with us on 4 customer-facing platforms. So that's desktop, mobile web, iOS, and Android. When we do A/B testing, we don't do the same A/B test across one. So it's not like you flick a switch and it appears on everywhere. You have back end and front end of these platforms. So you have to do some work in each of the back ends for it to show then up on the front end. And we often start with where a platform where it might have most traffic, because then you can run a shorter A/B test than waiting for more traffic to come through. On the partner side, we have 3 partner-facing platforms that we work on. There are more, but we only work on 3. So it's the Partner Hub, it's the Partner's Extranet, which is the desktop version of the Extranet, and we have the Partner Pulse app, which is the Extranet but in app form. So if you think about it, there's 7 platforms, and they all have a front end and they all have a back end, and work has to be done on both sides. And often what we see is the stuff on the front end, and we actually don't see all of the work that goes into the back end, and there's a lot of work that happens there. So with that in mind, the next thing we look at is, okay, well, what is our visual identity? What is our brand? What do our customers expect to see from us? How would they like us to talk to them? What is our tone of voice? What kind of, like these icons that go into it? This is not my area of expertise, and I've learned so much in such a short time, but we're very serious when it comes to these kind of design principles. And then, so we have our background, and then the next step is to pick a part of the problem. So we never take the full problem. We only ever take a portion of the problem. For example, putting levels on the front end on the platforms. It's a part of the whole Travel Sustainable program. The first thing we do is come up with some of the designs and features that we would like to put on the front end. Then what we do, we have consultations with both the partner and the customer. So we do interviews to get some of the sound pieces of why there might be some issues, what they like about it, what benefits they might see from it. And then after that, we take those data points from the interviews, we put them into partner and customer research, where we scale up the amount of people that we ask the question to. We get feedback from that. We go back to the drawing board with the designs that we put forward, and we may cut some of them because maybe they don't work. We'll edit some of the ones that need to be edited with UX copywriters and UX designers. We implement it into the back end, and then we implement it onto the front end. And it's that part on the front end where we show, so you have an A and a B. A is the base variant where you don't change anything, And then B is the variant 1 or 2 or 3, where you make a small change. And it could be in the first one, the button is blue, and in the second one, the button is green. And like, it's not that it's a massive change, and many guests wouldn't even know it. And that normally runs for a period of a couple of weeks. And then from there, we get the results. And each test will have a different set of metrics. So it's not we're always looking at the same metric. It might be that we're trying to show that this change drove more traffic to the partner hub, for example. So that's how the A/B tests work, and that's why sometimes when you look on the desktop, you see it's there, and then you go to show it to somebody on your phone, and it's not there. Or it was there on your desktop, and then you show it to somebody, and they don't see it. So there is reasoning behind it. I'm not sure if you remember, but when I first started, we first started displaying third-party certifications on our platform, and we said, all certifications get a leaf. Simple. And we put it into testing, and it didn't perform well because we didn't do this kind of work. So we're very serious about this step, and while it may take some time, it's important we get it right and don't rush in to put something on the platform that ends up slowing down the landing pages, that increases the number of customer service tickets we get because we've confused the customer. So this is a journey. It really is, and of course we want it to happen faster, but it's important we do it right, and that's the main takeaway there. I thought it would be interesting to show you some examples of slight changes that we do across different platforms. So this is in the partner extranet, and on the top example, the hypothesis was that we wanted to drive more partners to the education part in the partner hub, so the sustainability handbook. And you'll see actually the text is pretty much the same. I don't know, is it blurry? Oh, it's clear. The text is basically the same. The only change we made from base variant to version 1 was that we aligned the text to one side and we put in a picture. Fairly easy change, nothing major. In the end, the metric that we had was that we increased traction to the education handbook. That happened, we rolled it out, we moved forward. The second option, or the second example, is in the extranet where accommodations fill in their information. You'll see that nothing changes in the designs and how we collect the information. It is actually different now if you were to go into the extranet. It's now a blue box that you check. But in this example, the change that we made was we explained and we give more clarity around what the question meant and how, when you could say yes to that question. We wanted to make it explicitly clear. Metric here was about partner satisfaction. So how can we improve partners' understanding of this information? Again, successful metric, it went ahead. We did another couple of tests, and now it actually looks a little bit different than this, so that's cool. The first two were simple enough and positive, and we said, okay, well, it's important we give more information to the partner. We want them to understand what the program is, how it works, and all of this. So the picture where you see small steps, big impact is the partner extranet, and the text that you see on the side, we wanted to put in directly under where it says small steps, big impact. We wanted to put in all that information. And it performed really badly because we confronted the partner with too much information right when they entered the sustainability section. So we stopped the test, we went back through the process again, and actually we put this a little bit further down the page so it's not so intense when you first log into the page, and now it's a simple small steps, big impact, and then immediately the level that the accommodation is at. Another example in the partner extranet, so when we talk about splitting out levels and making it easier for customers, it first has to start with partners. So the partner needs to know themselves what level they're at, and they need to have time to understand, well, what does the level mean? How did I get it? Why does my neighbor have a different level than me? How can I get that level? What does that level mean for the customer? So there's loads of questions that come up from that. So the first thing we do is in the extranet, we put in the text along the top to say what level they're at, and also this big white text is around the bottom of the page, actually. And you can see that it explains the progression in the program for partners. And then tied to this, we have help center articles in the Partner Hub that explain why this has happened, what level it is, and we translate that into nearly 43 languages, I think. So that was the first step. That happened back in November of last year. So partners for a long time have been able to see what level they're at. Customer-facing side is a different story. So for the last 4 months, we have been working on different A/B tests on the front end to try and split out the levels in a way that adds value and makes it easier for the customer to find more sustainable travel choices. You'll see that the blue box in the top for the shortage accommodation, you'll see it said travel sustainable property, and that was not clear what level it was. So when we first rolled out the program, we put all levels into the same tag, and we just said all accommodations part of the program are in here. That was only for then because we needed to split it out and make it clear for accommodation. So then the second test we ran was splitting it out into this bigger screen you see, so the home sweet home stay. And you'll see it's relatively small, but it says travel sustainable property dash level 1, and it has 3 leaves. And then under that, you see the active status. So these were the design classifications for each of the levels. We tested this on desktop, and we thought, well, certification, certified property, independent certification, that's clear, everyone will get it. They didn't. And so things that may seem obvious, unfortunately, end up maybe not being that obvious. So we came back and said, okay, how do we, and we know that because we get increased customer service tickets because they're curious and they want to understand. And if we do a good job, we don't change any of the customer service issues because it's explained already. So we came back to the drawing board, and then you see this Amsterdam hotel. I won't try to say the last part of that, but the Amsterdam hotel, we changed the design a little bit, so now the leaves are at the start, the text is in green, and it has a green highlight through it. And we're starting to see better results from this. We're not as confusing to the customer. The only thing I would say is keep in mind that this version is being A/B tested, so it could end up not being there next week, it could end up looking different, but it goes back to the point of the importance of getting it right. We can't just throw something on the front end and then have cause customer service issues or cause the partner to be contacting our company and feeling annoyed about the changes we're making. They need to see that there's value in it for them and that we do it well. Showing you then what this looks like on the hotel page. So when the customer clicks in on the search card and then goes into the hotel page, you see the label right at the top of the page for the customer. Halfway down the page, you see the travel sustainable box. The customer can expand it. In there, it explains what level the accommodation is. If it's level 1, 2, or 3, then it explains all the attributes that the accommodation did to be at that level. And then if the customer wants to know more about the program, they can click in to read more. And then they learn more about how the program works, what it does, et cetera, et cetera. And so this design, this path, wasn't something that we decided would happen. The customer decides this path because it's the path of least resistance, right? We want to make sure that we're not causing confusion. We go through this process and sometimes we think, oh great, we've understood the problem. And one example of where that happened was back when we collect the questions in the attribute section. When we initially started back in 2019, we first loaded the questions, and we went through that process where we wrote out the questions. We had someone technically build the model, but then we had to convert the attributes into language that a partner and a customer would understand. We tested the language for the partners, and we went through the whole process. And where we ask most of the questions, it's a positive question. So it says, do you have double glazed windows? Do you have a towel reuse program? And so all of the initial questions were positive formed. But when we got to single-use plastics, we changed the question and we said, have you removed or never had single-use plastic straws, stirrers, and this? And everyone we tested said, yeah, that makes sense. It's clear that you're making the distinction. So we loaded them, and partners were filling it in. And it turned out that people don't read the full sentence. And so what happened was where people were reading the first one saying, do you have double glazed windows? And then they were just skimming the rest of them, and they were saying, yeah, I have straws, yeah, I have stirrers. And it was like the opposite of what we wanted. So we had to delete all of that data, and that was heartbreaking because we had just started, and it was thousands, hundreds of thousands of data that we had collected. But it happens, you get it wrong, you learn from it, and a lot of the A/B testing that you see on the front end, the most important thing is that if we fail, that's fine. We just stop it and we do another version of it. We don't create products at Booking that I know today what 100% looks like, because it's not possible for me to know that. But what I do know is that I do it in incremental changes small changes, but always adding value, whatever the metric it is I'm looking at. So it's not always about conversion, it's about simplicity, driving awareness, making it easier. That's the whole point. Yeah, that's your customer question.
Yeah, I think it's very amazing that you have the ability to actually improve and create a program based
Yeah.
on data that comes from millions of users of this very, very small incremental changes that we understand of what actually pushes towards certain behavior. And I think that it's fantastic. This is one of the reasons that we also had in Sevilla and also this year a session about data, stats, and trends where we can hear some of these things that we can gain insight of some of these studies that were done by some of the GSTC members. We also heard it was yesterday from hotel beds, and now a little bit from yourself on how these small changes of perhaps half a sentence, full sentence, and so forth. It's amazing. By the way, a quick clarification. Our friends at booking.com usually say partners. It refers to the accommodation.
Yeah, sorry.
So
Good call out. It happens so often, and I never remember to correct myself. Yeah.
It's fine. I also found out, it's like, are you also referring to us as partners? So, yeah, so this has been quite a great chance to also see on what you're doing on the accommodation side and also on the guest side on how it is being seen. And perhaps, Tizian, perhaps you can share a little bit on the aspect that probably quite a few in this room are interested in. That's the verification aspect of it. So let's dive into a little bit more in-depth question on that. What's going on here? Is it just whoever is just marking? Is there any other type of verification? How do you go about? Is it you just leave it as it is? Maybe you can share a few more words on that.
No, absolutely, and verification is our key priority, and we take it obviously very serious. That said, it's a very complicated problem because an experience in a hotel or an hotel experience, it's unique and very fragmented. It's not a product. It's not a bike that you check the impact on, and the next 100,000 bikes that are being produced have the same impact or the same classification. So that's why we're looking at different ways how we can achieve that verification. So it's not one golden bullet that will solve the problem. It's really the combination of different parts that will help solve the problem, and not only be us, but I think we need to look at it from an industry level as well. So what we're doing at Booking at the moment is that we have 3 methodologies or methods to strengthen verification. One is when a partner submits their data or answers all the questions, we make very clear that it's part of the terms and conditions. So false information provided might have serious consequences. This is not insignificant because I think it shows the seriousness we take also as Booking and our responsibility. Secondly is user verified content. So this is really the potential of all our travelers and bookers and using them to verify whether a hotel has actually implemented a certain attribute or not. So what we have started testing last year already is that when a booker stays at a property, you would normally get a question around around satisfaction and other did you like were there any issues that you had? We now have at least 3 questions that are dedicated to sustainability. So it will actually acknowledge a certain action taken by a hotel. So have you seen double glazed windows, or have you seen vegan options being offered on the menu, or in terms of local engagement with community, did the property actually is displaying paintings by a local artisan, etc. So this is a very important and good way for us to verify this, because this is not a static moment. We will see the impact over time. So this is a very important one that we're looking at very closely and see how we can scale that. The third one is third-party audits. So we were working with a third-party auditor, and we will then provide the partners that are part of our program, and they will execute third-party audits and then share the information with us whether a partner has actually implemented those attributes or not. And the fourth one is obviously certified properties, right? They have gone through a rigorous verification progress often, so we recognize that as such. But But I mentioned user-verified content and the bookers. This is, I think, where we have to work with authorities as well and with legislators, because you run into questions like, when is a property verified, right? Is user-verified information or content or booker feedback, is that recognized as such? Is it in supporting, or can we, when a property has received 10 times the feedback 10 times from different travelers, can that be recognized as verification, yes or no? So I think it's very important, but we also need to make sure to legislators on how to understand what we're dealing with, and make sure that the tourism industry and hospitality industry is unique and is fragmented. So that's something we're trying to really work on to increase that understanding with policymakers.
And just to add on that, because one question that comes up from the user-verified content is, well, what if one guest has a bad experience and they want to say, well, no, they don't have all of these things and they just want to leave that comment. The logic behind that isn't when one guest says it. It has to be connected with as many reservations are sent to that property. So it's not one guest said you didn't reuse towels. It's when multiple guests say that. And then the system is set up to flag that then to the partner, the accommodation, the hotel, to let them know that it has been flagged like that.
Yeah, that's actually quite useful. When I book an accommodation through an OTA, I usually go and check, and if there's only one or two really bad reviews, it usually says that it's actually pretty good because there are so little of them. So
Yeah.
this quite makes sense. And so if we're speaking about certification, it's quite clear that it's important to refer to what certification means, and that's certification itself is defined as a voluntary third-party assessment through an audit of a tourism enterprise for conformity to a specific standard. So in that sense, how does Booking.com for this program accept certified hotels? Do you see any way for promoting certification and not just using the attributes?
Yeah, I mean, Case already said that for us, certifications are the gold standard. That's where we believe that all accommodation should work towards that as their option. For us, they fall into the highest level of the program. As you can see, you have level 1, 2, 3, and then this name to be confirmed, top level. And you also see from that the effort that we put into making sure that it's not just falling among the rest, but it does stand out from the top, so the customer is able to understand that, yes, it's part of the same family of tags, it's part of the sustainability program, but this one is above all of the rest of them. And we spend a lot of effort. The last 4 months have been about getting that right. And we've had endless conversations about how we can make sure that it does stand out properly. For us, when it comes to certifications, we don't see ourselves as a certification. It's about bridging the certification and supporting partners on that journey. So how can we take those accommodations who don't have a certification? I think we have about 11,000 potential accommodations through the API now. We're currently showing about 6,000 of them. We have a long way to go, but even still, if you compare that to our database, we have 28 million listings. So 11,000 potential accommodations having an independent certification, 28 million listings on our platform. The gap between those who have certifications and those who need to have certifications is huge. So our role is, how do we simplify the journey and bring those partners, build confidence, realize that they do have the skill sets, because they tell us the barriers around why they don't want to become more sustainable. They don't have the skill set, they don't believe it'll bring in incremental guests, they think that it's too complex, they have limitations in their building. And some of these are true, and some of these are perceptions that they have. So how can we, as a collective, not we as in Booking, but we as in everybody in this room, work to remove those barriers from those accommodations and bring more people, more accommodations towards third-party certifications? That's really what we believe.
Actually, it reminds me, I think maybe this month or last month, there was a post that you, maybe of the report that you posted on your LinkedIn, and then someone wrote, "Oh, we are certified by Booking.com," and most likely it's not the most accurately, but
Yeah.
probably they do have that badge there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, when accommodations, they talk about this skill set and not knowing. It is if you come from a position, like the majority of accommodations in Europe are SMEs. I think we did a research, it was 87% or something like that, quite a high number. And it's those accommodations that are the family run, it's the same people doing the check-in, it's the same people serving at the restaurant, servicing the rooms. Sustainability gets deprioritized because now they're fighting a cost of living crisis, and the priority is about reducing energy bills, which, by the way, could be done by if you were more sustainable. But I don't think the realization of that connection is there. And so our role is about simplifying the language and making them understand like where they are, what they can do, what they can start with today, what's in the direct sphere of influence, and then how can they continuously improve over time.
Well, if we're talking about this kind of chit chat on social media, there are some rumors of using AI technology to actually help assess those claims. Can you share something if there's anything on that from Booking.com?
No, I think AI has a lot of potential in machine learning, and we involve that a lot in on our platform, obviously, as a technology travel company. At the same time, it's also, I alluded to the fact that the travel and hospitality market is so fragmented, and it's very hard to use AI and ML at this stage. We're looking into it. Obviously, it's one of the tools that we have, and how can we leverage that? I don't want to set false expectations. That's not the case when it comes to our program and verification methods. So.
And well, actually, Thomas, you were just mentioning about the things related to skills and knowledge, and that's something that is always relevant in our conferences as well and comes up quite often. The question about what happens if we're not speaking only about the big players. For SMEs, do you take into consideration certain challenges like skills or linguistic problems, that sometimes you have these questions, but as you showed before, right, certain question can be asked in a way that might not be understood properly. But I think that some of those are translated as well. Maybe you can share more.
Yeah, so when we think about that language part of it, Booking as a platform, we translate. I think translate is the wrong word because we actually localize a lot of the languages. So it's not just a case of translating the word into the local language, it's actually translating it into the term that might be used instead of the word that we would put in English. So from a sustainability point of view, the product in the back end for partners to see and on the front end for customers to see follow the same rules. So we always translate and localize the language. It's the same with education. So education in the Partner Hub is translated into 30 languages and localized as well. So there's the language part of it. But when we talk about different accommodations across the world, our model takes into consideration that. So when we look at calculating impact for each of those attributes, we don't give the badge when you have 10 or you have 12 and you have whatever number. It's not based on numbers. It's completely based on the impact calculated. So you could have 2 accommodations in neighboring destinations, neighboring countries, having said yes to the exact same attributes, but will be different levels because we calculate the impact of that action in that destination. And then we give the badge depending on how many the attributes that are selected yes. So we do take localization into the model itself. Yeah.
So, well, this brings me to ask another question. When you go, well, actually, there's one restaurant in my hometown, in my home city where I live. I used to go once in a while with a friend, and they serve pretty good food. And then one time I realized the food is not as tasty as it used to be before. But I said I'll go there again, and I checked, and then I realized it's totally different because the chef changed, because they made some changes. So I realized that the whole operation changed. Same thing can happen with a hotel or any type of accommodation where you might go there first year and everything is perfect. They would tick all the right yes to all the right answers, and you'll go there again next year and you'll be very disappointed for how they operate and behave. So do you have any process to actually verify this kind of a continuous review? Can an accommodation that has, let's say, the 3 leaves, 2 leaves, 1 leave, or something like that, can they fall down? Can they be put out of the program? How does it go?
Yeah, so on the what Keishan mentioned about the use of verified content, we have guests checking into accommodations basically nearly every day. And we are in constant contact with those guests. We always ask them, like, how was your stay? So there is continuous review of accommodations. The process is set up to check that. But for the program itself, it's not that you get level 2 today and that's it, that you don't have to, now that you have it, you don't have to do anything. In the first version, we had 29 attributes. We already have a version 2 that's ready to go live, hopefully by the end of the year, all going well. We have to go through that whole A/B process, so bear with. But yeah, all going well, we add an additional 29 attributes in there. So if accommodations don't adapt to the new attributes or implement the new attributes and continuously improve, then yeah, if they will drop out, because it's based on weight again, it's based on impact. So if they don't continue to put in the attributes, then their weight will drop down and then the threshold won't apply. And it goes back to this point about the bridge, right? Like if you start off with 29 attributes and let's say a certification has 150 at its level 1 version, if we can slowly bring accommodations towards that 150, and then the step that they need to go from where our program ends to where they need to be is actually much smaller now, and they feel more confident about it. But for what us, it's the most interesting part. So yes, you have this, you can fall out, it's not guaranteed that you stay in it. But where we can add value is we collect also the no's from partners. So 1.36 million accommodations told us that they are doing something. We know from that group what they're not doing, because we don't show the no's on the front end. We show the yeses, and then we look at the no's ourselves. And then what we want to do from that is start identifying patterns within that data where we say, this group of partners, accommodations, in this destination struggle with this attribute. And the solution could be driving awareness to that action. So, you know, customers are looking for vegan and vegetarian meals. It's important that you offer vegan and vegetarian options on your menu. And that's a simple communication to the partner. It could be that they struggle with something and actually there's funding available for that in the local government, but they didn't know it was there. So how can we connect the funding with that group of partner? And we also have Francesca, so you've seen around also, is work, back corner waving. She is also working on growing the education for that. So we have our handbook, but we can do many other types of education to help support partners feel more confident and doing it attribute by attribute, right? Breaking down the barrier by doing it attribute by attribute.
So when you identify some sort of like that, let's say that there's a cluster of area that is very clearly the clients want vegetarian, vegan meals offered. So you actually speak with the partners, inform them about that in a
yeah, we have a whole machine set up on how we communicate. We can different methods of notifications to partners and emails and all these kind of things. And I have to say this topic, we're quite lucky both internally at Booking. People are very excited about this. It's quite enjoyable to work. People are super engaged. But also our accommodations are really engaged in this. They say to us, like, we're looking for support. We believe it's important. I know what you want me to do. I don't know how to go about it. And we see really high partner satisfaction scores from any communications that we send out. And we take real pride in that because it's important that you speak in a way that's understandable and not to just kind of throw loads of information there.
And perhaps you can share a little bit more on the role of education. Do you provide some more general education as well in the program, or?
No, I think education, as Thomas is saying, has huge potential. Everybody thinks about financial incentives. Okay, I think first understanding the problem and how we can help partners to implement more sustainable actions. That's really, I think, where a lot of progress lies. And to Thomas's earlier point, I think one key takeaway, what we learn is that providing the right information at the right time. Right? If there's a level 3 partner who has made significant impact, there's no point sending them an email about removing plastic straws, right? They've been further on, so they probably want to learn more about business cases around energy, as you mentioned, as a double-edged sword. So I think learning that, understanding that is key. Partners really appreciate the content. We get very high engagement scores, so that's very positive. And I think we can take the next step here in terms of collaboration. This is, I think, working with destinations, sharing this kind of data and telling them, hey, you now 60% of your properties are now participating in our program. How can we work together to increase that number? Maybe there's a certain segment that we see there's not really represented. Hey, how can we target that group and make them aware of this program? And what Thomas was saying, we can look at energy, we can look at engaging local communities, connecting subsidy potentially to it, but really sharing that transparency with destinations, with DMOs, saying, hey, water management, we see that a certain segment is struggling with implementing certain sustainability actions. We have a lot of education, maybe we have best practices from other markets as well. There's a lot of knowledge in the local market as well. Maybe there's a specific local circumstances that preventing them from implementing certain actions. Hey, how can we help? So I think that's really the next step where we can take education.
So let's move to another topic, and that's your collaboration with Travelist. So for those not familiar, Travelist was founded by Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, and it is a coalition of some of the largest travel companies in the world, such as Google Travel, Trip.com, Booking.com, and others. Some of them are GSTC members that we are directly engaged with, and as you can see also on the Travelist website, in consultation with the GSTC, Travelist facilitates an agreed list of attributes that hotels are being asked about in the platforms to make it simpler for consumers to actually find sustainable places. Perhaps you can share and elaborate more on how you are involved and working as Booking.com in Travelist in a non-competitive manner with some of the other giants.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts, nobody can do it alone, especially on sustainability, and having all the different parties in one room discussing these type of issues. How can we unify the industry? How can we be more clear towards partners? Can we collect data in the same way? How can we use all the same questions across platforms in our communication to partners? I think it's of critical importance, and everybody would I think acknowledge that. The Travelist Independent Advisory Group, they've also recognized the booking Travelist accommodation model. We're working with them together to fine-tune that, to improve that, etc. So it's a very important platform for us to work with industry players that we would obviously normally not work so closely together with, to make things happen. It's not always easy, right? There's always a competitive element. I think we've made significant progress. I think we're collecting now the same questionnaire in the same way, like across data collecting platforms. Also, you have the travel impact model on flights, so also in displaying CO2 emissions that's aligned across platforms that have implemented that model. So these are real steps we can take, and it's addressing one of the most fundamental of barriers that we see in the feedback that we receive, is how can we uniform the communication to consumers, because a consumer doesn't understand local programs or local certain sustainability actions. It's really comes back to your point, simplicity is really see where consumers really engage and act on.
So, well, let's look a little bit in the future. What awaits us? What's next? And I mean in the program, not at dinner.
Cocktails.
Cocktails, yeah.
What will we see next year when we are having a similar discussion?
So in the short time, our focus is on two main things. So on verification and ramping that up. We've done, we have 3 methods live. We've done a lot of what we call the MVP, the minimum viable product, testing for the first quarter. We got a lot of learnings from that, and now it's about ramping it up over the next, by the end of the year, we'll really see some kickoff from there. At the same time, we want to make sure that we are also pushing through verification on those accommodations now. So this year will also be about manually getting all those accommodations verified. So a lot of work there. And then the long term, I mean, we have a climate action plan out. We've set clear targets for ourselves. We recently did our sustainability report where we outlined some of our, what we did last year, but also some of the things that we would do next year. So I think we're quite transparent about the direction for ourselves. It's important also for Booking to look internally. So we also want to make sure that we do as we ask. So we look after our internal operations, all of our offices, our business travel, any of the marketing, all of these kind of things. And we're really trying to foster this culture of sustainability within the organization, because that's important to us. We want to make sure that people are engaged in the topic both in their own way that they work, but also in the products that they build and the way that they interact with either the partner or the customer. And we recently did a company-wide climate awareness training for all employees, made available for all of them.
I think it comes also back to the point, we are also on a journey, and we see the increased industry scrutiny, we see increased collaboration, we see incoming regulation on making sustainability claims. So it's never a dull moment.
Thank you for sharing. Let's move on to get some questions from the audience. Okay. Can we see Slido? Oh, right, we've got quite a few questions here.
Keep them a surprise.
Okay.
There.
Let's take the question from Takashi-san from Rakuten Travel. Yes, so Takashi-san is asking if there are results that are higher level hotels get higher booking rates. You see some correlation there?
As we mentioned earlier, we're doing the first 3 or 4 months of the year have been about incremental changes on the front end. We brought on a new customer-facing product team at the start of this year, and so some of their first projects are about getting the levels on the front end. It's too early to make any correlations between the results we have from the A/B tests and the connection with increased conversion, because our primary metrics in these cases are we confusing, are we making it easier, and then you start looking at those things. So multiple tests across multiple platforms will have to happen before you can make any connection between these kind of things. And trust me, no one wants to know this information more than I do. So you'll hear me scream it from the office rooftop the minute we find out. But yeah, too early at this point.
Yeah, maybe to clarify, we don't set rates, right? So we don't provide rates. It's the accommodation itself that sets rates.
So let's go for the next one that seems to be the most popular. Questionnaire, those that are including the attributes that are sent to the hotels, are answered by the hotels themselves. Is there a way you can know that the answers given are correct, or are you depending on hotels' honesty? I think it refers to what we discussed.
I think it's the verification piece. Yeah. We take it very seriously. It's our key priority for this year. We have 3 methods that that are live and testing and scaling. Yeah.
Okay. And I think also the question from Patisse, I think we heard it, but maybe we can highlight it again. If you have a plan, well, I think you already said that you have a plan on encouraging accommodations to go for certification. Is that right?
I mean, the whole program is set up in a way that it rewards accommodations that go the extra mile and get certification, and at the same time holding the hand of accommodations and bringing them closer. But we can also make sure that they go forward with this. But remember, there are still barriers in place, and a lot of them are perceptions. And so what we would love to do is work on removing some of those barriers and perceptions, so actually it becomes easier for partners to take that final step. And it goes back to what Keishan was saying about, like, if an accommodation is at level 3 and you know that they're making significant investment in a certain region and there's a certification there that is made itself accessible for an accommodation, then that step then becomes much easier for the accommodation.
That's another example where we can share data with what we discussed in the working group as well. Certification bodies.
Yep.
Great example.
This refers to before the conference begins, usually GSTC holds a number of meetings with certification bodies, with GSTC recognized standard owners, and so forth. So we had a workshop together with GSTC recognized standard owners, as well as with the accredited certification bodies, where we discuss some of these things. But we'll keep the developments for that for later. And from Catherine. Probably Catherine from Hostel World, I assume. How widely used is your sustainability filter and versus other filters like rating, pricing, and who uses that, right? So there's the click on sustainable accommodation. Do you have information how often is it used?
Again, it goes back to being too early. We are only exploring the front end point of view. We did recently run a new A/B test where we moved the filter up one position, higher on the side on desktop, and then we did see a positive increase in the number of customers that were using that. But again, it's too early to share any of this kind of data because we want to set the right expectations.
And a reference to the report that was published a few weeks ago, that it shows, well, I think it's something that is shown every report.
46%.
Some people are willing to pay more for sustainable offering, but the question is willing to and actually paying for. Is it something that, do you have comments? I mean, we've seen a number of reports that showing high rates of people that are actually saying, yes, I will. And then I think it was in Lufthansa, that research where, where they were actually looking, will you, would you like to? And then at the end, how many actually click the extra, yes, I will add $2 for offsetting my flight. And it's something about 1% were actually taking action to do that. Do you have any extra thoughts, or if not insights, you can share thoughts?
Yeah, we do see that people say they're willing to, but when we think about someone's purchasing behavior, it's the price. We shared that it's up 11%, thinking that accommodations are sustainable accommodations, sustainable options are more expensive. But it's price, location, and availability, and it comes down to sustainability is almost expected. If you look at previous years of research, they are saying, I'm on my vacation, this is the parameters of the thing that I want to book, but there is an expectation that it's there, almost like the Wi-Fi, etc. is there.
Kishan, there's a question here about commissions, but I think that maybe I will kind of ask that in a different way. Are there any financial incentives or benefits for those hotels that are considered more sustainable, or in that sense, they would be treated the same in that sense, and then just...
Yeah, at the moment, we're really focusing on supply, as I mentioned, and that, again, there's also a world to be won in the educational space. So it's coming up a lot, commissions and etc. Who knows in the future, but we still think that there are a lot of steps to be taken in the meantime before we can even consider that.
And we've got Patrick Richards, who moderated the session on stats, data, and trends. Mentioned the size of the task in engaging with hotels globally. Do you plan to scale the program, especially to smaller independent properties?
Yeah, when we first launched the model calculations and the program, we had only one model, and we applied it to all accommodations. It was country specific, but it applied to all accommodation types, so whether it was an apartment or it was a hotel. We noticed that these home style accommodations were actually really interacting with it because there's not many solutions for this type of accommodation, and they're looking for some kind of guidance. But what was happening is we were holding them to the standard of an accommodation that might serve food and have restaurants, for example, but this was somebody's home, they were renting a room, for example. So what we did was actually come back, we created a second version of the model. So now we do two sets of calculations, one for home style accommodations and one for hotel style accommodations. The calculations are, we use home specific data and hotel specific data to calculate impact. And some of the questions are available for homes to fill in, so they can say that they have organic food if they do, or that the food is locally sourced, but those have a zero weight attached. So it doesn't have an impact because it's not material to that accommodation type.
And maybe needless to say, the program is free of charge, so it's really accessible for everybody.
Yeah. And also, this is the version, maybe like 2 or 3, but it's like not the end version. So a lot we will learn about how we can localize the program even more. There's some attributes that we ask that are not applicable, like we ask about EV charging stations in the Maldives, for example. But we need to find out ways where we make specific questions that are even more locally relevant. But that will happen as we start to build out the program.
So I see we have quite a lot of questions from Anonymous, but we'll choose only one of that person.
Very busy.
The one that seems to be now popular. So our externally certified hotels are verified through customer reviews. So the question is, so we share with you the list of sustainable hotels that are certified by accredited certification bodies, as well as currently also a second filter of hotels that are verified to a GSTC recognized standard. And then they get that higher level of certified. Are they also being additionally verified through your ways to review from customers or other ways, or you keep it as such?
So we don't allow accommodations self-report whether they have a certification or not. We only ever accept it from the awarding body, and then we pull that information and we put it on the front end, so a partner can't add in a certification. If the partner has added attributes in addition to those, so has gone ahead and filled in some of the additional questions, they will also be checked under the UVC user verified content process and the general terms and conditions. At this stage, they're the ones that we will continue to review, yeah, even though they have a certification.
Well, let's take a question from Karen Edwards. In your report, it shows that customers don't really know where to find sustainable options and more want tips. Would expanding editorial on your website be an option? And I think maybe I can answer that I think that the program itself, that's the whole point, is actually to solve that. So there is an engine where people can actually find those hotels that are considered sustainable according to your program in different levels. And of course, I think in general, we support a lot of other information and other content that is up there on the internet that shares information about how to identify sustainable accommodations.
Maybe to add as well, I think more information is not necessarily, helpful for the customer. I think it really comes down to present it in a clear and conscious, easy to understandable way. We provide quite a lot of information, but we see that not all customers look for that when booking a trip.
Let's go with a question from Chizu-san from JTB, but if you don't mind, I will change it a little bit. So if you see any differences in not obtaining certification, but rather maybe being active in the program and receiving 1 or 2 or 3 leaves compared to different countries, do you have some data or information you can share if you see more going forward in a certain region or certain types of accommodation or something like that you're able to share with us?
The one thing we do see is that when you look at our accommodations cross destinations, cross countries, in some destinations we have more accommodations and some we have less, for example, but what you do find is that there is an even split across the average, so they don't stray too far from the average, so you do see good representation across all regions, which is quite nice. One thing that we've noticed with certifications, and granted it is with the certifications we have in our system, they tend to be grouped to certain areas. So for certification specifically, we tend to have blank areas, and we would love to try and correct that to bring on certifications maybe that are more regional, for example, that we don't currently work with. But for the program in general, including all levels 1 to 4, we do see a good coverage across all destinations.
I see here a question that asks about the satisfaction rate. Do you see any insight on that? If you see correlation between certified properties or those that are considered with a badge to have higher satisfaction rate?
We think about both the partner and the customer. When we talk about partner satisfaction, and I mentioned earlier, we have really quite high results when we're interacting with our accommodations on sustainability, and it actually tends to be above average of the general communications. Specifically, when you look at customers and accommodations, I guess we're referring to like the review score in this example. We do know that TUI did a research a couple of years ago that showed that accommodations that were certified had higher customer review scores. But we also want to start testing those kind of things as well, and also is the range of all of the reviews shorter rather than it's between 2 and 8, but actually it's always between 7, 8, 9 this receive hour. But we haven't done that study yet ourselves.
Well, that's a great potential for study also here in Turkey, with the look likely increased number of certified properties to compare this among many other things.
Yeah.
And I think that some of our academic partners and members are actually looking at that as well. You mentioned before in when you were speaking about another topic, and I just noted down this. Do you see a way to work closer with the destinations and identifying specifically, right, not as kind of taking that question to another level of not just, okay, we see a trend, that's it, we're not taking action, but actually identifying that, oh, there's actually a lot of accommodations that are in the program in this region. Maybe we can step up, work with them to help them go forward or something like that per destination. Do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the education point I discussed earlier. We discussed earlier is that our data is so valuable, and especially the no's, right? We can really use that data and discuss and collaborate with destinations, address it very specifically, and what are the local circumstances? How can we, through education or other means, how can we increase participation? How can we increase a certain category? Youth opportunity, absolutely, and yeah.
Okay, so we've got just a few more minutes left, and maybe I can just ask you for last few words from each one of you, maybe up to a sentence or up to 1 minute on where would you like you yourself to take this program onward. So start with Thomas and then Kishan.
I have to go first. Yeah, for me, my big hope for this is that we kind of all lean in together to see like how can we strengthen different parts of it, because as Kishan was saying earlier, we're not sitting here saying that this is the solution, thanks, you're welcome, but actually here's an opportunity. How do we all play in and take and leverage that opportunity to add more value?
Yeah, same here actually. And I like the question about social and cultural sustainability. I think there's plenty room for innovation as well when we talk about verification, because what we see now, direction a lot of regulation is taking, is they're really focusing on measurable outcomes, right? They focus on CO2, which is understandably, of course, and water, etc. But it's very difficult to measure social and cultural sustainability. So I think we need to continue to remind legislators as well, it's a holistic approach. And let's not only go with the measurable actions, because that makes our life easier, right? So I think that's important. And what we are very excited about is the collaboration piece, right? We want to make impact, and destinations, we believe, are the right level as well. We can, we are working with people who know what's happening on the ground, and again, education can really address some of the low-hanging fruits, and that maybe there's a misunderstanding, maybe something else, and yeah, let's really focus on that and take it from there.
And just if we can answer that question, because we kind of jumped on it, but yes, the model does assess across social, cultural, and environmental attributes, and that was for us really important when we started, because it is much easier to the environmental ones, and it's a lot harder to measure the social and cultural ones. But we did make sure that in version 1 and version 2 that we properly represent them. So yeah.
Yep.
Excellent, great. I really enjoyed this session. I learned quite a lot of new things. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks, Thomas. Thanks, Kishan.
Thank you. Oh.
And I will stay on stage to find out who was being the most active on Slido. Ooh.
Anonymous.
All right.
Anonymous.
Ooh.
Okay. So we let you a few more minutes before to asking some questions and upvoting some of the answers. Yeah, can we see the slide? Need to click it. Where's the clicker? Okay, nice. Here it is. We had attendees asking 252 questions with 675 likes. Nice. Now, let's see who got the most likes and the most active person. You think it's Anula? Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you for the soundtrack. Oh, before. Suspension. Surprise. Sustainability has been one of those words that have been there in the questions quite a lot. We've seen GSTC, thank you for mentioning us in the questions. Hotels, program, hotel, change, data, certified, challenges. TGA is there as well. MICE, criteria, local tour. Very nice, but not very surprising, right? So let's wait for the next surprise. Ooh, Pelin Gökçek Adiyaman. Pelin, are you here? All right. So Pelin, can I ask you to come on stage to receive your 3-night accommodation and free registration to the conference of your liking next year? Let's get a photo with that. Congratulations on asking good questions that the audience asked and liked. Thank you. We can find more details later. Very nice. So you can decide if you're joining us next year in Sweden or in Singapore, and we'll learn more about it in a moment. And with that, I'd like to call on stage Mr. Randy Durband, GSTC CEO, to just conclude the conference. Yeah, for the next slide.
Good afternoon. Hello. Thank you. To conclude the conference, wow, do we have to do that? Aren't we having fun? Or are we so exhausted from so much deep brain power and usage? It takes a lot of energy with all the brain power. But, I just want to say a few concluding remarks. We probably all have our own impressions from all that activity and all those thoughts and all that deep brain power. And interestingly, all three of the little themes I wanted to share just came up in this discussion with Booking.com. One is, these are all words that I had in my word map in my opening comments, and I want to emphasize continuous improvement. You know, we're truly on a journey. I think that humanity didn't do so well in sustainability in general for much of our existence. And I feel like we have this huge amount of catch-up to do, and it's complex. And tourism especially, with people, adding to things, the complexity of society and human psychology, it's hard. So we need to have continuous improvement. And when we usually talk about it, we're thinking about the hotel, the bus company, the ship, the airplane, the components. But I think we need continuous improvement in everything we're all doing at a systematic level. That was quite a discussion about continuous improvement. All that testing, wow. Not easy. So even at a very systematic level, what we do with certification, what we do with all the levels of verification, that's all about continuous improvement as well. So let's keep a respectful approach. You know, the fact that Booking.com is here, no matter how you feel about their pace or whatever, which I think is pretty fabulous, given these challenges, others are not doing that. So the fact that you're in this room, all of us in this room, I think, are people who are really trying to affect change. It's not easy. So I think, you know, continued respectful dialogue of sharing and growing together. The second one is related in a sense, and that's the theme of non-competitive sharing. This is really quite remarkable, the Travelist roll-up, and I've been personally involved with it. I mean, these are fierce competitors in the marketplace. And at the CEO level, they have said, we have to get this right. And our friends at the Sustainable Hospitality Alliance in London is another good example, where major hotel chains that are fierce competitors in the marketplace are getting together on sustainability and sharing ideas and methodologies. And I think in this room we have different approaches, we have different needs, but sharing in a non-competitive way for a more sustainable world. Because even when we try to do these things together, we find it's so difficult. We sometimes take steps backward, but we have to just keep moving. So a shared environment is truly essential, and I think we need more of it. And the final overriding thought for the conference and all the work we do is holistic. You know, we're in an existential crisis with the climate change, so we have to get at greenhouse gas emission reductions. We're putting plastic in our bodies. We have to get at that. But as bad as those are, we have to do a lot of things. And we can't forget all the social issues and animal welfare and other aspects of environment and biodiversity. We've got so much work to do that we truly need to keep at it in a holistic way. And I fear that sometimes we say holistic, but then we're so challenged with measuring and reporting on carbon that we might, as an organization, say, let's just focus on that and forget everything else. If I could put a plea to say, let's focus on that and everything, because the broader definition of sustainability has all sorts of compelling things. So those are my kind of overarching themes that I think we're always all dealing with, but I think we've really hit on some of the sensitivities and the challenges of those three things: continuous improvement, non-competitive, pre-competitive sharing, doing it as a community, and keeping a focus on holistic. So thank you all for all of that. A lot of energy, a lot of good discussion, and we pride ourselves in just creating a forum for good, open discussion on a lot of things, and I hope you've felt that way. So, moving on. Reviewing a few things here in terms of housekeeping. Farewell dinner tonight is a little over an hour from now. It's very nearby in the Cosmos Center, which is a building we've not been in. It's just around the corner from this one. You can either come through this building or go around this building to get it. Tomorrow, post-conference tour information for the people that registered. There'll be a 10 o'clock meeting point somewhere from the hotel for that. Tomorrow morning, comfortable shoes. Lunch is not included. And 1500, 3 p.m. return to Nirvana. So here's the information on this evening and for tomorrow. So again, 7 o'clock this evening. We had a mistake in the app for a time. It said 7:30, but 7 o'clock is the correct time for the dinner this evening next door. Then we're going to have our friends for next year's conferences come up here shortly. First, though, I want to very quickly bring up our staff. And first, if I could call up Roy Ariel and Mihi Kong, kind of our senior leadership. Quick, don't be shy, come up quickly. And I want to combine thank you to our fabulous staff for really hard work for a great conference with just making sure you kind of understand who our core team is. And many of you have interacted with Roy in so many levels. Roy, great conference, great membership engagement. Thank you so much. And all the complex assurance technical issues, Dr. Mihi Kong really is helping us pull that together and organize all that. So Mihi, thank you for your wonderful contributions. We introduced our board 2 mornings ago, or yesterday morning ago, it seems so long ago, and they stood up for their tremendous support and diversity, but this is our leadership team internally. And I want to call up our whole team very quickly to come up towards the stage to thank them for the conference and all the good work. And in all of our activities, you can find on our website who to talk to, which email address, but just to personalize that a little bit, let's just have them wave on their kind of functional level. So, we get the lineup right. There's Tiffany. Oh, Tiffany's right here. Tiffany is in charge of membership engagement for public sector members. Tiffany, wave. The next 3 people are involved in membership engagement for everybody else. That's Giulietta, Tatiana, and Adriana, wave. Steph is our external communications person. Jason, our training coordinator at a global level. Emmy, Asia Pacific manager, doing a lot of things, helping with criteria development. So Young is next, a lot of project development and criteria development. And So Young, Herdy, and Natalia, our assurance team, working with Mihi on assurance, Wave insurance people. And then we have a vast network of trainers, assessors, friends, and advisors that help us on so many things. But it's a very small team pulling a lot together. So thank you all for a great job. We're missing one person, Claudia in the UK. Okay, thank you very much. Did we get a photo? We got the photo? Oh, a quick photo. I'll see you. Thank you. Okay, just one quick moment of a little housekeeping physically here. And again, reviewing tonight, 7 o'clock, tomorrow 10. So in the past, before COVID, we would do 2 conferences per year. We would call one a global conference and another one a regional international conference in another part of the world. And we decided moving forward in 2024 to have 2 conferences we call global. And we shocked everybody in Seville already announcing 2024. To repeat that, so the surprise is long gone, but to welcome us for next year's conference hosts, we have 2 of them. You can join us at one or both next year in Sweden in April or Singapore in November. So I'd like to call our friend Linda Mannerby to the stage to tell us about inviting us to come to Stockholm and Sweden for next year. Linda, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Turkey and GSTC organization for those fantastic days here in Turkey. On behalf of Visit Sweden and the whole tourism sector in Sweden, just want to say that we are honored to host the next conference in Sweden. And last year, our former government in Sweden launched a new strategy and also a new vision for Sweden. And Sweden is supposed to be the most attractive and sustainable destination in 2030, built on innovation. And that's quite a bold vision for Sweden, but it also gives inspiration to the hospitality industry. And it also makes us focus on collaboration in Sweden. And having GSTC in Stockholm, in Sweden, is really a milestone in that work. We will actually host the conference in Stockholm, and Stockholm is a beautiful city, but it's also one of Europe's most environmental cities. And Stockholm is built on 14 different islands, and we will actually be on one of the islands called Djurgården. And Djurgården is consisting of restaurants, museum, and also hotels. And this is an organization called Royal Djurgården, which have been working a lot with GSTC Criteria and GSTC for a long time. So with that, I'm looking forward to meet all of you in Stockholm and Sweden in April, and welcome you to a new era of purposeful travel. Thank you.
A new era starts now. A time to embrace the world from new perspectives. where traveling creates lasting value for the individual, society, and the planet. In Sweden, we welcome the new and the different. We believe in finding our own path when it comes to values, innovation, or lifestyle. But choosing our own path doesn't mean we walk alone. Together, we want to manifest Sweden as a travel destination by exploring the tourism of tomorrow. A new way to travel, meaningful and conscious, with experiences that enrich both the traveler and the destination. A new era starts now, and we are the ones leading the way. Welcome to Sweden.
Thank you very much. We can't wait to come. Sounds fabulous. Then, later in the year, or you can come to both, our friends at Singapore Tourism Board will host us in Singapore. So I ask our new friend, Hui Hong Ong, to come to the stage and talk to us and invite us to Singapore. Thank you.
Hello all. On behalf of the Singapore Tourism Board and our partners, Sentosa Development Co. and Resorts World Singapore, we would like to invite you to attend our conference in November 2024. And I would like to thank GSTC for giving this opportunity to host this event in this beautiful island of Sentosa. Well, Singapore is a very, very small city and a very limited resources, but sustainability has always been very important to us. And therefore, our vision is to make Singapore one of the most sustainable urban destinations in the world, and a city in nature where large experiences come with small footprint. So I invite you to come to Singapore to share with each other, to learn from each other, and also to act on tangible and actionable items, and also to maybe seed new innovative solutions for our travel and tourism industries. And also not to forget to come to Singapore to experience our multicultural society, and also try our cuisines, which has been inscribed in UNESCO as one of the intangible cultural heritage. So we are ready to welcome you in November 2024. I will see you there. Thank you.
You think you know Singapore?
It's time to reimagine! You think it's all skyscrapers?
Then what's this?
And this. You think it's a small city? Then there's this. And this.
Even this.
Just when you think it's one big zen, there's this. It's time to reimagine.
Like this. And this. Like this and this.
You think we're a city that never stops? We know how to relax.
Like this. And this.
You think it is one island? You've got 64 surprises coming your way!
If you think it's all about the food,
You're right. But it's not just hawker. It's this. And this.
and this. Singapore, you think it's a country? A city?
An island?
Think again.
It's so much more!
Thank you. And if you could just stay close by, Huang, we'll maybe have photos with Linda as well. And after we dismiss the class. Both countries of Sweden and Singapore, I think, do a marvelous job of having developed a modern economy, modern life, with still an eye on nature. Both really, I think, capture that in very different ways, but both capture it and work hard at it very strongly. This evening, we'll say our proper thank yous to our friends in Türkiye and Antalya and TGA, but for the moment, I thank you personally for your engagement and your participation in all you do. I think anybody working on sustainable tourism, on sustainability is a hero. So we're all heroes in this room. Thank you for that. Thank you for participation. See you in 1 hour for dinner, and we'll go from there. We'll see you next year we'll see you online.